Welcome back to the BJJ Fanatics Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ford. My guest today is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's also the founder of BJJ After 40 and has a very active and successful YouTube channel and social media community targeting practitioners over 40. He's a respected writer and blogger. He also teaches out of Flow Life BJJ in Lakewood, Colorado. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be joined today for the second time in my podcasting career by Mike Bidwell. How are you today, Mike?
Awesome, dude. Good to see you, man.
It's good to see you too. Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a minute.
You and I were just doing the math off the air. I think it's been 7 years since I interviewed you last. I think it was 2016.
Yeah, that was like just 2 years after I got my black belt. Kind of like really for me, kind of the beginning of like, you know, the BJJ After 40 stuff. And you were like literally one of the first podcasts that I ever did. And you were like the biggest one. Like and actually, if you remember, it wasn't even video; it was just audio, right?
Audio, yeah. The video thing is kind of a new thing now that we're doing here. So
I remember walking around my house with my laptop and my earphones, doing that podcast, like kind of, and actually like being like super really nervous and like intimidated by you and like holy shit, dude. This was like the big time, you know.
I assure you that was unnecessary. I assure you that was unnecessary, but I'm flattered by that, and I do appreciate it.
No, truly, dude, truly. No, it's Grappling Central Podcast, dude. It was awesome.
That's what it was, man. Absolutely, yeah. Now we switched over to BJJ Fanatics, and man, I know you've had a lot of change going on in your life too. You have a school now. You're a black belt now. I mean, catch us up. So it's 2016 to 2023. That's a long stretch. What else is new?
Well, I got my black belt in 2014. You know, for those that don't know, I was a brown belt for 13 years. So I got my brown belt in 2001, black belt 2014. And after I got my black belt, I was in my early 40s at the time. I'm now 53, almost 54, but my early 40s then in 2014. And after I got that black belt, after that long tenure at brown belt, it really made my focus on trying to really give back to the community, because it was such a journey for me, getting my black belt after 13 years and finally reaching that goal. And it was like, how can I give back to the community? And I was, like I said, I was in my early 40s at the time. And so I started writing articles and talking about, what does jiu-jitsu look like after 40, and now for me after 50. How old are you, Ryan?
I'm about to be 38 at the end of April.
38.
Yeah,
you're young.
My
wife and I were trying to figure that out this morning. I said, I think he's like in his 30s. Yeah. He seems so young, but that's awesome, dude. But I got my black belt and then just really made this commitment to growing these communities and trying to give back to the jiu-jitsu community. And then I opened up my school here in Colorado in 2016 and just been living the jiu-jitsu dream.
It's amazing. Well, congratulations on all your success, man.
Thanks,
it's definitely very well earned. And, Mike, I know you're someone who takes a very holistic approach to jiu-jitsu. That's something that I've always appreciated about your content and the way you teach and the information that you share. You often emphasize not just the physicality and technique of jiu-jitsu, but also the emotional and the mental side of martial arts. And, man, for that reason, I figured you'd be a perfect guest for today's topic, which I wanted to explore, is managing ego on the mats.
Ooh, the ego.
It's always there, man. So ego. Dude, it's talked about so much in jiu-jitsu. It's even written on the walls in many academies, encouraging students to leave theirs at home. And interestingly, I'm halfway through a great book right now, actually, all about ego. It's written by Ryan Holiday. It's called Ego's the Enemy. And in the book, Mr. Holiday provides a real simple description of what an unhealthy ego is. It can be boiled down to an unhealthy belief in our own importance. And I thought that was an excellent description. So, Mike, in your years of training jiu-jitsu and your years of teaching jiu-jitsu, what do you think are the most common ways ego manifests itself on the mats?
Well, if you think about ego, the word ego means I, right? Self, and you hit it right on the head there, self-importance, right? When that becomes bigger than everything else, right? When that becomes the most important thing, I think that's when it becomes healthy. And jiu-jitsu can be kind of tricky. It's a little bit of a dichotomy in a lot of ways too, because it's not a team sport, but it is a team sport because you literally have to have two people to participate. You can't do it by yourself. This is, even traditional martial arts, you could do katas and forms and stuff like that and go hit the heavy bag. And you could do an entire traditional martial arts workout without a partner, feel like you did it. You could probably take, online martial arts video thing, right? Like, and just be sitting in your living room doing Zoom and doing karate and like, I'm doing it. And it's nothing against karate. It's just more that like jiu-jitsu requires two people. So if you, me, ego becomes so big and so inflamed, right? It becomes so inflated, right? And you can kind of visualize that. Like when something's so inflated, becomes too inflated, there's no room for anything else, for no other realities, right? There's that. And then when something becomes so big, what does it do? If it isn't released somehow, right, it's going to explode. It's going to pop, and it's going to come out in very unhealthy ways. And I think that's what we have to look at as jiu-jitsu practitioners, that this is not an I sport. It's not a me sport. It's an us sport, right? Just like a healthy conversation requires two people. It's not like one person holds control of the conversation. You just sit there, nod your head and smile, right? Or you listen with just for the intent to respond because you want to outdo them and tell them a better story, right? Just like jiu-jitsu is not like that either, right? So it's got to be a symbiotic relationship with that person. Like, yeah, you're trying to tap them out. It's not like you takes away from the game at all. It's still the same game. I'm trying to tap you out, but I'm not going to make me so important that you become so less that like I'm willing to take risks with your body now. Or your mind too, right? An unhealthy mental attitude as well.
Yeah, that was very well said, man. And often the most common way that we see people express an unhealthy ego is the unwillingness to concede and say, hey, you know what, you got me, good job, And
right, yeah.
I think the idea of not wanting to lose in jiu-jitsu is a big one. And it can create a lot of anxiety for someone, even not just, it's not only frustrating for the people around you. You mentioned that idea of a balloon growing. It's not only you that's expanding that way, but you're also crushing out people around you now.
Yeah.
They're trying to also, there's no room. And for the person who's who possesses the unhealthy ego, it can create a lot of anxiety for someone before and during training even, like needless to say, it's a bad mindset because tapping is inevitable for everyone. I mean, even Gordon Ryan talks about getting tapped on training often. So if people are hanging on to this idea that tapping is a negative thing, it's definitely going to ruin their training. Do you have any, in your opinion, like what other ways does that kind of mindset stunt a student's development?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because if you think about it, like if you're not willing to tap, like first off, you're going to get hurt. Like that's pretty obvious. Like maybe you haven't gotten hurt yet. Maybe you're a white belt, maybe you're a blue belt, maybe you've gotten dinged up a little bit, but maybe you really haven't gotten hurt. And I think a lot of times when we do get injured, there's always some deeper lesson in there for both of us, right? So it's an opportunity to sit back and pause for a sec and say, wait a sec, why did that just happen? Like, why was I rolling and I had this person in an arm bar and they weren't willing to tap, but I wasn't willing to concede either. Like I wasn't willing to like maybe let them out of the move or just let the game continue or just move on or onward and upward or, you know what, I'm a blue belt. He's a 4-stripe white belt, but he know not what he do, right? Like he just doesn't know yet. Like that's okay. Like and to the point where you said like not willing to tap, but some people just aren't even willing sometimes to like even give up position. Right. Or like you're on the mat and like you're against the wall now and you're trying to like move to the middle of the room and you're like so worried about recreating the position now because like what happened here was so freaking and vital that like, dear God, like I don't want to have my arm in the wrong spot because I might lose now. Right now, imagine like being that student carrying that burden all the time. That's a heavy burden to carry. Like I have to win every time. I've got to tap every person out. If I don't get a submission and I get submitted, I must suck at jiu-jitsu. Wow, that's a pretty like, difficult road to be on. And if you think about it, it's kind of a little bit bipolar too, because it's a constant up and down. So if you're basing your performance on whether you win or lose in practice, right? In practice all the time, then that's going to probably, again, lead to that unhealthy ego. So the way that, to answer your question, how do we help students with that? Don't make practice about like having to necessarily win or lose. Like, yeah, you want to play the game, like you want to get the submission, but it's okay sometimes to let the person, get out of the move, let them work an escape, maybe like you had them in a move and they didn't know it and you probably could have tapped them, but you let them out and maybe they get positioned now and Who fucking cares, right? Like, seriously, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. Are you trying to be the world champion on Tuesday night at 7? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't hold a lot of pedigree, right? Like, oh, I won class on Tuesday, white belt class. Woo, good for me. So, like, you know, I think you have to start changing your, you know, your perspective, right? Like, about what winning and losing actually is. If you're a competitor, then that's even better because you have a place now that you can go and actually, like, allow that to, like, transpire and work through that, and, you know, have that experience that you want to have where you can go and blow your load and, like, you know, tap someone out and get a submission and all that, right? Like, but maybe class isn't that. But if you're not a competitor, then, like, you know, make it more about building, like, a really technical game of jiu-jitsu, right? Instead of, like, trying to have to beat every single person, win every single match, and keep score of every single class.
That's an excellent breakdown. I really like that a lot, man. Yeah, it kind of makes me think too, like you were, I love that you pointed out the dynamic of sometimes it's not just the person who doesn't want to tap, sometimes it's the person who wants to get the tap too. And sometimes one person having the bad ego to not want to tap can kind of incite the ego of the person who wants to get the tap. And it's okay to just let them go and let them, you know in your head that, hey, you know, I got to the position, I passed the guard, I isolated the arm, I did a good job. It's kind of like if you're rock climbing inside and you go up to the very top of the rock climbing wall and you hit that button on the wall that sounds off the siren. It's the same thing. If you get all the way to the top and you don't hit the button, you still got to the top of the wall. Like, who really cares?
And wasn't it about the journey to the top anyhow?
Exactly.
Wasn't that what you were? Wasn't that really, like, if you think about it, wasn't that, like, what it was all about in the first place? So, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I always remind students when I grapple with them, it's like, yeah, we're going to get to here, but let's start here. You know, sometimes they want to go 100% and they want to start right there. It's like, no. Let's find our way to here. We'll get there, right? But we don't have to kill ourselves on the way there. And isn't it going to be just about this that gets us here anyhow, right? Like, the end of it's great. Like, and if actually, like, good jiu-jitsu is, like, it's a little bit of both here, right? It's a dance. It's like, you know, I do something, Ryan counters, and he does something, and then I counter, and then I roll, and I turn, and we counter, and they counter. And at the end of all of that, somebody gets tapped out. Now, if it was really like that, like, we had this great back and forth experience, I don't think either of us would care, like, that much in class at the end of it what happened. Tournament's different because then, you know, you're competing for medals and stuff. But, like, in class, as long as we both felt like, but if it was like Ryan's rolling with a white belt, Ryan slaps him in an armbar, he taps out, boom, it's over, one dimension. Yeah, we know you can do that. Well, you do it again. So what? You do it again. So what? That doesn't really, like, you're not evolving his game or your game. But if you gave a little bit to him and then he took a little bit and you gave a little bit and he took a little bit and you had this dance that eventually got you to where you wanted to go anyhow, that'd be way more fun than, like, even more fun than hitting the button at the top, right? Even more fun than hitting the button is really probably the journey to the top, although the challenges that even got you there, because that's actually what you're celebrating, right? Not the top.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you know, the interesting thing too there is I like what you said about the back and forth dance of a good roll, you know, the counters and the things that happen. I mean, that's way better data to analyze anyway when you go home afterwards than just, okay, I immediately tapped someone, like, from the get-go, or I wrecked someone over and over during a round because they're less experienced than me. It's way cooler to think, man, there were so many cool things that happened between me and Mike when we were rolling, and he caught me in the end. But dude, there's like 20 things that happened there that I want to, like, zoom in
on.
Like,
and that's where we can put our focus, right? That's not the end. Like, that's where you put your focus when you go home and you're like, okay, so, you know, you want to spend time in reflection. Like, reflection is really what life is about. Like, we love the experience, but then we also like to sit and think about it and go, wow, that was really cool. I had such a great time rock climbing today. I had a great time at jiu-jitsu. What was great about jiu-jitsu today? Well, I got to roll. And this is a conversation you're having with yourself, or maybe in your jiu-jitsu journal, you're writing this down. I had, you know, this many rolls today, and I had this experience with this person, and this guy always taps me out, but today I felt like I did a little bit better. Or, you know, you're writing down these experiences and you're capturing them because there is a lot of data in there. There is a lot of things that you can learn from, and there's a lot of, like, great reflections and moments that you can be proud of, and things that you can go, oh, fuck, that kind of sucked. I definitely don't want to experience that again, so I'm going to watch out for that next time. And then it's fun. I like the idea of writing it down, because then You're committing it to paper. You know what I mean? It's more powerful in your brain. You're making a bigger connection. You're creating more neural pathways in your brain. So that's important to write it down. But then it's important to go back later on and look at it too. And even look back like in a year from now, 2 years from now. Wow, look at my white belt mindset back then. That's so funny. Like, look what I was focused on. That's kind of cool. Wow, I forgot about that. That's a great reminder. I didn't remember that. You know what I mean? So things like that, it's important to collect that information and then commit it to paper and then have that nice, way to go back and look at it again later on.
Absolutely. I love that you brought up having a jiu-jitsu journal. That's been the single most important tool in my development in jiu-jitsu. And unfortunately, I didn't start doing it till I was a purple belt. And I can only imagine the data and the information and like I said, the self-reflection, being able to see my mindset and where I was and what I was focusing on had I started from day one. So if you're out there listening, man, guys, start a jiu-jitsu journal, like a training journal for sure.
Yes.
Super important tool.
Yes, absolutely.
Mike, to tie this in with your work with the over 40 crowd, in what ways do you think you've seen ego present itself in older practitioners specifically? Like, have there been any unique patterns in ego that you've noticed with practitioners who start later in life? Like, I imagine maybe.
I like to think that most people, like, I think that in my age category tend to be, for the most part, I think there's a higher level of maturity just because you have lived longer. You've experienced more shit. You've gone through most people in their 40s and 50s have already had dealt with college and mortgages and kids and crying babies and crazy teenagers and, all of it. Right. And just all of the life challenges. So I feel like, at least for me, at 53, I'm definitely way more calm than I was when I was younger. And I'm kind of in a weird situation because you have a daughter, right?
Yeah, I actually have a son and a daughter, yeah.
Son and a daughter. There you go. So you have two. Okay, so two. I have four. I have two teenagers, boy, girl. One is 13 and one's almost 17. My daughter's almost 17. And then I have a set of 2.5-year-old twins. Wow. So I have this, right? So you have this, at 53, raising, first of all, twins is no joke. It is no fucking joke. That shit is serious parenting, right? Yeah. I do not know how we got through the first 2 years. Literally. It's kind of funny because after we had them, we had them, knee deep in COVID, in 2020, in April that year, right? So we're at the park walking them and this woman comes up and she goes, "Oh, so you have twins?" She's like, "I have grown-up twins now. Just want to let you know, you just have to get through the first year." And she said it in this way. It was very serious. Just know if you get through the first year, you're going to be okay. I was like, well, what if we don't make it? And then she just left. And then she left. And it was kind of like, whoa, what the fuck was that? Right. Yeah. And so we get through the first year and we were like, and we actually banked on that. Remember what the woman said, we just got to make it through the year. We get to 1 year, we're fucking golden, right? And then we got to the year and we were like, whoa, this is still super fucking hard. We're not getting any sleep, and all of that. So my point in saying this is that going through all of that stress of having twins and, and having them in the hospital during COVID and everything that went with, it has gone on with raising, twin babies, at my age. I can do it in a more conscious way. I can do it in a more grounded way than when I was raising my other kids. It was more survival. It felt like back then. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, all of that. But I feel like at 53, I can do it in a more grounded way and in a way where I can be more mindful and conscious of of the experience. So I think a lot of people that are my age and, in their 40s and 50s, when they start jiu-jitsu, what I see is the first thing is they're so thankful. They're so excited and have so much gratitude that here I am at 40, 50, and I've got a guy who trains with me who's 64 years old, just started in jiu-jitsu for the first time, and he's so grateful to be doing it. He's so excited about it. He just wants to do it every day. But with that, at that age, there has to come a certain amount of balance with the training too. It can't be, 5 or 6 days a week. So I always have a 1-to-1 ratio. So 1 day of training to 1 day of recovery. It can't work any other way than it. Yeah, of course. And this includes me, Mike, Professor Mike. It means that, for me, I want to roll every day. I love rolling, dude. It is my dopamine hit, dude. You probably feel that. I think anybody who trains feels it, right? Yeah. You're a brown belt. You've been at it for a minute. I can see the smile on your face. You're like, dude, right? Yeah. Dude, I'm actually have goosebumps right now on my arms, dude, because that is the dopamine hit that I get when I'm done. I'm like, oh my God, that feels so fucking good. I could go into the roll. I could go into the open mat, whatever, in the worst mood, grumpy, pissy, mad at the world. I hate myself, whatever, right? We all experience a wide array of emotions in our lives. And sometimes I experience those too. And sometimes, I remind myself, just shut up and roll. Like, shut up and roll. Like, that is sometimes the biggest cure to like everything. And so I feel like folks that start this at an older age have a lot more gratitude for it because they're so excited for it, because they're like, wow, I wish everybody says, I wish I would have done this when I was 20. Of course, everybody, what do we say? The best time to start jiu-jitsu is when you're 4 or today. So, be thankful you found today and you're doing it. But what a great thing that we have in art, that people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, there's a guy that comes on that's on part of my BJJ After 40 private group on Facebook, which is awesome. Everybody should check it out. We're going to just come up on 30,000 followers in the next couple days.
Wow,
but there's a guy in there, Gary. Yep, there's a gentleman on there, Gary Parrott. I've talked about him before. 71 years old, doing jiu-jitsu, blue belt. Freaking loves it, man. He's all he talks about, right? And he's the to me the epitome of like that, just so much excitement about jiu-jitsu. But with that, if we're gonna bring people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70-year-olds into our jiu-jitsu academies, we have to make it sustainable for them. And that means, as professors and teachers and coaches and those that are there, when we see someone comes in and they have a gray beard and they got some gray in their hair, that's an opportunity for us to have someone be able to do this that, maybe 20 years ago they couldn't have done jiu-jitsu. But I think now we can create an environment that anybody can do it. So for me, like the guys in my school that are in that age category, I usually recommend that they train no more than 2 or 3 times a week. And that's it. Like, that's all they need. It can build on that, once they're more experienced. But like, that's kind of the path, I think, for most people in their 50s and 60s, especially like normal people. When I say normal in the sense that like, I'm not probably the average 53-year-old. Like, I've been doing martial arts my whole life. I'm already in good shape and I'm healthy and I know how to stay healthy. But someone who's just started might come into this, 50 years old, 60 years old, 50 pounds overweight. They haven't exercised in a long time. So it's a good opportunity for us to create a really great student and a great experience for someone that could change their life.
That's excellent, man. I like I said, I really do. I admire all the work that you do to target that crowd because, it is cool, man. It is cool, like for a lot of people, especially if they grew up playing sports and got past high school or college, and now there's just not a whole lot of sports that they can feel a part of. They find jiu-jitsu, they fall in love with it, and it's a lot of fun.
And you're 38, dude. You're going to be in your 40s.
I'm right around the corner. I'm right around the corner.
And then you're going to be in your 50s, and you're going to go through all of it, and you're going to still want to do jiu-jitsu when you're 40, 50, and 60. So imagine in 22 years, you're going to know you're good now, but you're going to know even more. You're going to want to play all the games and do all the cool stuff. And you're not going to want to be like, oh, old man jiu-jitsu, I can't do anything. Oh, I don't like that, dude. I don't really like, subscribe to that in my life. You know what I mean? Old man jiu-jitsu. Like, I like to train jiu-jitsu. Like, you know what I mean? So like, you're going to want to do all the cool tricks. So it's important that we have a sustainable path for us so that we can practice when we're in our 40s, 50s, and 60s, when we're still good. Everybody, if you ask anybody in jiu-jitsu, they're going to tell you that they're going to want to die on the mats. They're going to be, oh, I want to be like Ilya Gracie. I want to be like 90 years old on the mats. Well, if you want to be 90 on the mats, you got to first be 40. And you got to be 50 and you got to be 60 and you got to travel through and there's no rush to get there, right? Like, I'm not in a hurry to be 80 years old, right. But I also want to have a path there because I do want to be the person who can still roll. And I still want to have my hair sticking up on my arm when I talk about jiu-jitsu and see people smile because they fucking get it, right?
That's excellent, man. Yeah. I love it. Well, I love that you're emphasizing the importance of, once you're over 40, it's important to manage your training and manage your time. Make sure you're taking the time to being mindful to add recovery days in between a training and things like that. And to bring it back to ego also, understanding that there's going to be certain things about your ego that you might have to manage as well. I imagine people over 40, some of them anyways, might struggle with the fact that they can't always keep the pace with a 20-year-old training partner. What kind of advice do you give to people that struggle with that?
So I think we have to first start from where we are. Like, where are you right now? So it's just like when you start a grappling round, you're like, what is my, and this is a question I tell my students all the time, where's my gas tank? Well, today my gas tank feels like this is a conversation you're having with yourself. Like, you're coming to jiu-jitsu, you're thinking about how you're going to train today. What's your gas tank look like? Well, it's kind of like a quarter of a tank today, to be honest with you. And there's not any gas stations nearby because I didn't get a good night's sleep, and I didn't eat good today. I ate crappy food and I didn't sleep good. So on and on and on it goes. Well, that's not a gas tank problem. That's a life problem. You're just living a shitty life. So you need to fix that stuff first. And that goes with anybody. So first you look at your life and you say, what are all the things that I can fix in my life so that I can lead to a good, healthy experience, right? So that I do have a good grappling experience. So if everything is in order, then now you look at your gas tank and you say, well, I have a quarter of a tank still this time because like my kids kept me up, you know what I mean? And I'm tired. So then, like that's where I am today. I have a quarter of a tank of gas in the tank. So I have to be mindful about how I'm going to use up that gas today. Like I've got to be really careful about when I'm rolling, like, I'm going to pick a game that's going to support that. I'm going to slow things down. I'm going to work my grips. I'm going to quiet my partner down, control them a little bit, and I'm not going to burn myself out. And if anybody who come into jiu-jitsu, whether you're 40 and you're overweight, or maybe you're not as flexible as the younger guys or as fast as the younger guys, are you trying to be as fast as the younger guys? No, that's not realistic. So I'm not trying to compete with this guy over here who's 22 years old and come on, I'm 53. And if I was a new student, it would make sense for me to make him what I'm trying to get past. He's not my litmus test. He's not, the thing. So I just have to, and we all have to in our jiu-jitsu journey, look at what is the competition? Who's the competition? Who's the competition? You are the mirror, the person in the mirror. Interestingly, how old are your little ones?
There's 3 and 13 months.
Okay. So, right. You're right in this world right now. At about 2.5, the ego starts to develop. Kids start to look in the mirror for the first time, and they realize they can move their own arms. They can move their own legs. They are autonomous. They can do this themselves. They're like, holy shit. And they start to express that, right, in weird ways. My kids, my twins right now are knee deep into this. When they want something, they want it from you. But then when they're upset with you, they're like, I don't want it. I don't need you. I don't like you right now. Yeah. And that's that ego playing itself out and they've realized that, you know what? I get to choose whether I need you or don't need you, right? So that's that age where that really starts to develop, is when they're about 2, they're like, oh my God, I can do my own thing. I don't need you anymore. I don't have to have you anymore. And so are you experiencing that with your little ones right now?
A little bit, yeah. My daughter, she's selective about being helped. So for example, if I try to pick her up onto the couch or something, or if I try to do anything like that, she says, no, I got it. She wants to do a lot of things on her own. She's very fiercely independent as a 3-year-old. So that's been kind of I've had to learn kind of how to step back a little bit and let her kind of, even if I know she's about to mess something up or fall or whatever, then I have to just be like, look, she's got to learn it herself. She's got to figure it out herself. So
and that kind of goes back to jiu-jitsu too, right? And especially for older practitioners, because I think we have to realize that we are the age that we are, but we can work with what we got. Isn't jiu-jitsu so cool that it'll take you exactly as you are? Literally, there's people that practice jiu-jitsu that are missing limbs. There's people practicing jiu-jitsu that have all kinds of challenges that you and I don't face. And yet jiu-jitsu will allow them to do that. If they were going to go do something else, that it probably just wouldn't be able to do it. If you were, missing legs and you went to do taekwondo, it's a kicking martial art, you wouldn't be able to really effectively practice the martial art. But jiu-jitsu, somehow this art allows everybody to participate in it. Literally, it'll take you as you are. So it's important that there's always space for everybody to be able to practice this art, and giving everybody an opportunity for that expression on the mats, because it is so it helps everyone, right? You having that smile from training when you go home, doesn't that help your family?
Oh, yeah, immensely. Yeah, my wife always tries to kick me out of the house to get me to go do jiu-jitsu because she knows I'm going to come back in a better mood. Yeah.
Right. So if we can give that experience, if we can share that experience with people, doesn't that, not to sound cheesy, but doesn't that ultimately help everyone, help the world, help people around you? We can, jiu-jitsu is something that, yes, we practice in the dojo, on the training mats, on the floor, but really it's about how we take it into our life. We all practice jiu-jitsu. People that practice it truly practice jiu-jitsu, practice it in their life all day, every day, from the moment you're stuck in traffic to, your anything, any part of your life, any small challenge, big challenges are all going to feel like pressure from side control. He's laying on me. I can't breathe. Oh, do I just tap out to side control? No, I figure out like a little bit of space, just need a little bit of room. If I can find some space to breathe, if I can breathe, then I'm alive. If I'm alive, I can think. If I can think, I can problem solve. If I can problem solve, I can figure out anything. So just knowing that, like, I just need a little bit of space to breathe. Just knowing that, if you just knew that in your life, that's a pretty big thing to go through life, a pretty awesome piece of knowledge to know that I just need a little bit of space to breathe.
That's definitely a tremendous lesson for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And it's funny because like all these things we're talking about, there's been nothing in my life that I've ever done that's helped me develop more as a person and change bad habits and things like that than jiu-jitsu. And I think most people listening can agree to that and can relate to that. Mike, this next topic about ego, I wanted to pick your brain out about is actually something I find really interesting, and it ties in really well with what we're talking about here. I'd love to pick your brain on this. So as we pursue the jiu-jitsu journey, most people do indeed find that their ego becomes healthier, and we become more better problem solvers and all the things that we're talking about here. Jiu-jitsu has a way of just like beating our ego into a healthier state. You know what I mean? But for some it takes longer than others. But for the most part, I think that most people would agree that their ego is healthier now than it was before they started jiu-jitsu. But there's an interesting thing that can happen commonly, and that's the black belt ego, right? Sometimes it gets beaten.
I knew you were going there.
Yeah, right.
I was like, I think I know where he's going with
exactly. So what do you think are some of the aspects of becoming a black belt or being a black belt for some time in regards to bad ego rearing its head once again?
Because I think that's probably you're going to come across, jiu-jitsu like anything. It's like a cast of characters, right? It's literally a cast of characters. There's going to be the good, the bad, and everything else in between. It's like Baskin Robbins. There's 40 flavors. There's 50 flavors. There's a flavor of the month. There's all kinds of different people that are going to be attracted to jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu is going to attract people that, are all different. Some people have, all kinds of challenges, including me. Like this has been like a mental health journey for me. And like, that's what jiu-jitsu is for me, a mental health journey. It's helped me with depression. It's helped me with so many aspects of my life. So there's definitely that ability to help, but there's also that ability to maybe your ego becomes so big and so inflamed, especially when you become a black belt. There's that possibility. But I think that goes back to just like, if your daughter grew up and your son and they just weren't good people, I think you would probably look in the mirror and say, wow, what have I done to fail my children?
Yeah. 100%.
Right. Some of those choices they made, but man, like, did I give them the right tools? Did I guide them the right way? Was I setting a good example for them? Like, I don't know, like, because they ended up this one way and I had this other vision for them, but then somehow that happened. So just like a child, like a teacher, right, a professor, your job, I believe, my job is not to make my students better than me, first and foremost. Like, that is not my thing. My thing is to make them better than they can be, the best version of themselves, If it's really about the competition is the mirror, then I'm not in the mirror. I'm not the reflection in the mirror. There's some essence that you get from me as a teacher, right? I want to impart my essence on my students. I want to impart like the good parts of me on my students, but ultimately I'm still a human being. Black belt doesn't make you perfect. It just makes you human like everyone else, but you've gone through a lot of things and done a lot that hopefully that it does teach you something and you don't become a shittier person because of that. But then I think a lot of times it really kind of goes back to like, what is your teacher doing too? Like, how was your teacher raising you? I mean, what if, because that's really what it's about. Like, is that person really raised you the right way?
That's a very, very good point. I mean, on that note, when someone becomes a teacher with many students who look to them for wisdom and guidance, I can see sometimes where that would have an impact on a black belt's perception of overall self-importance. Like as we were talking about in the intro, like Ryan Holiday, who wrote the book I'm reading, mentioned that, an inflated ego is someone who has an unhealthy view of their own self-importance. So when you have all these people that are following you and paying to attend to your classes and seeking your knowledge and everything, I could see where that could be kind of an issue. Do you think that being in the position of having students and followers could in itself be a cause for ego for some people to swell up?
Of course it can, because here's the thing, like I've been teaching martial arts pretty much my entire adult life. You know what I mean? I haven't done anything but teach martial arts since I was in my early 20s. I'm 53 years old. That's a long time like doing this. That's a long time to go somewhere every day and have someone tell you how awesome you are and how great you are and like, oh my God, you're so great at jiu-jitsu, and oh my God, I love you and you're changing my life, right? So you're and Eddie, and that's not just me, like that's every professor. Like that is, that's what it means to run a martial arts school. You're seeing people at the best part of their day, like literally. And I love that. Like I love that part about my teaching. Like when I come into my dojo at nighttime and I teach a couple classes, I know that my students have been looking forward to this all day. I've been looking forward to it all day. And so for me, there's that responsibility now to do a really damn good job. Like regardless of how my day went, if I come in here and I got a kids class and I'm in a terrible mood, like those kids don't care and they shouldn't care. That's not their responsibility. It's my responsibility to be a good professor now, to put on my happy face, to teach class, to give them the best jiu-jitsu experience in spite and regardless of what's going on in my life, right? So that is the weight of being a professor. But with that weight comes a great opportunity, because that means that when I come in here, if I'm in a crappy mood, I can walk in these doors and shift completely. Boom, like that on a dime. Because I have to. I've trained myself to do that for years. So that's a great experience. But I think, there's so many great lessons with that, like, and being a great instructor, trying to be the best instructor that I can and living up to that. But, for some people, it can become like a huge inflation of their ego now. And they just, like that can be not really a good thing. And they could, with, like Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. But with greater responsibility comes greater power. Right? So being a black belt is greater responsibility. It's like, if you have a dojo or a school and you're messing around with your students, right? We see that a lot. It's pretty endemic in not just jiu-jitsu, but it's endemic in the martial arts community just in general. And really just any industry where there's, you're interacting with people, right? So like people dating their students or, doing that kind of stuff. I really believe that as a professor and I, like, in my own school, it's different here. I don't have a bunch of staff and stuff like that. It's my wife and I. It's a very much a family environment, so there's not that vibe. But I've been to places in the past that are, sometimes like that. And, when you're a teacher and you're a professor, you're in a position of power. It's not an equal playing field. You should not be dating your students unless you think that student is going to be the person you're going to marry, and that's your freaking soulmate, and that's your life partner, and that just for some reason they ended up in your class. That I get that, like that happens, right? But if it's just like, oh, whatever, like that's not a good thing. Same thing, with the parents of students, children that you teach, like that's not fair to them or to you, like to anyone. So I think like being a black belt, it comes with great responsibility, and it's important to recognize that. And we have, and it's what a great opportunity. Like you actually, as a black belt, you can actually change people's lives. Yeah, there's not a lot of places in life where you can literally change someone's life, or for good or bad too, right? Like that's the thing, like it's good or bad. So, with great power, great responsibility. Yeah.
Very well stated. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said, man. It's cool too, because I think that, like you said, this is a great opportunity for a lot of people out there listening who want to be school owners someday. I think a lot of people who go through the journey in jiu-jitsu and dream of becoming black belts want to have their own school. And these are some things that they might not even think about. I think a lot of us think of having a school like, oh, I want to be in this location, I want to have this style logo, and I want to have these color mats and stuff. And you don't really think so much about some of these deeper things that can exist in the world of an instructor's mind. So I appreciate you sharing all this with us. Of course. What kind of checks and balances do you think are important to keep in place for someone out there that might fall victim to having an ego swell up due to having a large student base in a successful school?
I think you just got to be humble. Like that's part of being a black belt. Like how can you even become a black belt with some form of humility? Like I think it's, at least for me, like that sort of just seems like it kind of goes with becoming a black belt. There's a good, there's this great quote by Hicks and Gracie, like, to tap someone out is not enough. To tap someone out is not enough, right? That's not enough. Like that's not just what jiu-jitsu is. There's like, to tap someone out is not enough. To do it technically is important, right? To do it with efficiency is important. To do it beautifully is important. To do it without hurting your partner is important. So like, if you take that and just expand that a little bit back, like, to tap someone out is not enough. Jiu-jitsu is bigger than that. Like, it's so much bigger than that. It can change people's lives. And so like, if you are a black belt, you have an opportunity now that, yeah, it could be you. One path could be like, it's about me and just evolving my own game. And some of that's important. There may even be a stretch of your training that's actually really important. Maybe you're a competitor. And so like you're in this mode right now where like, I just want to spend the next few years, like perfecting my game, perfecting my technique, building my jiu-jitsu, becoming super technical, becoming an awesome competitor, doing that. And then maybe that other part of and maybe you get their service through that. Maybe you are a motivation and inspiration to a lot of people. So now you build a platform where you can like really share your journey with other people so that they can become inspired by it. And you use that opportunity to not like talk bad about other people and not to like, being an asshole or, being a terrible person or, constantly talking about steroids and things like that. Maybe this path could be about like how you could help and contribute to other people, so maybe the competition can be a really good way to motivate and inspire people. Or maybe you're a black belt in a school. Maybe you don't even own a school. Maybe you're just a student who's a black belt or a brown belt. So how can I contribute and give back on a day-to-day basis? So maybe you walk over to that white belt with some gray hair that is overweight and you give them a little bit of your time, or someone else in the class. Maybe there's someone else who's quiet or maybe doesn't get a lot of attention. You go over and you spend a few minutes with them, roll with them a little bit, show them a few techniques, make them feel good. So go out of your way. And so there's ways to serve on a very small, like microcosm way, just in your own little academy, just by being a great training partner to other people.
Mike, there's something else you said earlier that I wanted to make sure that we zoom in on really quick, if you're okay with this. You mentioned that jiu-jitsu has helped you overall in your battle against depression, and it's been a mental health journey for you as well. If you don't mind me asking, how do you think jiu-jitsu has impacted your depression compared to other activities that you could have taken up?
Like what we talked about earlier, the smile on your face, the goose pimples on my arm. That's it right there, right? Like that experience, and bigger, and even more than that now as a teacher, like teaching class for me, sharing jiu-jitsu, constantly thinking about jiu-jitsu and techniques, and it's always playing out in my brain, like just moves and it's all the time. Like, and I love that. Like it's healthy. It's good for my brain health as I get older to constantly be solving puzzles and solving riddles and creating new puzzles and new riddles. And so that gets me excited about it. And that gives me like purpose. And so I think we all want to have purpose in our life, right? So jiu-jitsu for me gives me purpose and makes me feel good and I love sharing it. Like that gets me excited, sharing it with my online community, sharing it with you right now, sharing like the technique, sharing the round with somebody, grappling, locking, having just being honored to like being able to grapple with somebody, to tie up with them, to lock up their arms, to put them in a choke, to, what we talked about, that experience, that to me is like some of the most fun that there is. Like that is how, I get through my own, waves of depression, which really is, anybody who's experiences depression, it's not like, it's a weird thing to talk about because like, it always feels like, oh yeah, come on, get over it. You got a good life, kid. Everything's fine. Why are you depressed? You know what I mean? Versus like, I don't, it's a thing. Depression isn't something that you can turn on and off. It doesn't go away. It doesn't like you take a medicine and that's it. It's gone, right? And I've tried that route, like with medication and stuff like that. And that's great for some people and it works. It didn't work for me, like taking medicine. It was kind of making other parts of my life worse. So the medicine didn't work. So then it's like, well, if the medicine's making other parts of my life bad, and it's not really helping, then what else is there, right? Like, am I going to kill myself, right? Is that an option? But jiu-jitsu gives me, so when I'm having it takes those big dips and it's like two strings pulling them tighter. And so those ripples get a little bit more like this instead of like really deep down low and really high up here, really deep down low and really high up. So for me, it gives me not, balance. I don't want to say balance because balance is a process. Balance is never this. It's a little left, it's a little right, always passing by the center, right? So for me, jiu-jitsu gets us more like this. It's not so fucking big. Doesn't feel so black and so white. Like, oh, if I don't do this, then I would have to kill myself or something, you know?
That's excellent.
And I think it's important for people to, you know, if anybody else out there is, you know, struggling with depression, like it's important to talk to people. And it's important for those for everybody to just, you know, reach out to friends, like get in people's, you haven't heard from someone in a while, reach out to them, talk to them. You never know what people are going through. You just don't know. So it's important to, you know, on the forefront of that, just being proactive with the, you know, friendships, relationships, people in your life.
Absolutely. That's really well said, Mike. You know, I know the people that are close to me in my life are probably annoyed by me how I treat jiu-jitsu as if it's a treatment or a cure for anything. But with depression, I really do. I sincerely do think it helps immensely. I've gone through seasonal depression here and there myself. I've been thankful to not have any kind of consistent depression that I've had to battle in my life. But I've got a lot of friends that do, and I think that, man, some of the things about jiu-jitsu that help is, one, like you said, a sense of community, like having friends, having people that you're close to, having a team. Secondly, physical activity. Physical activity is the absolute worst enemy. Yeah, it's the worst enemy of depression. And then the third thing is having something that's really deeply robust in the sense of problem solving and having something to focus your time on, having something that you can really dive deep on and be entrenched in, to not be sitting around being idle. I think idle time makes things worse.
Yeah, and having a place, like you said, having a place to go. Like, you know, the older generation back in the day, like our parents and before that, people had church and they had like little groups that they went to. Or I remember my dad used to go to some like man group or something. I don't know what it was called. It was like, you know, like, I don't know, the Royal Order of the Water Buffalo or something, I don't know, right? Or whatever, right?
Nice.
But people had shit like that. Like, that doesn't really like exist anymore, like that kind of thing. Like, and a lot of people just aren't like turned on by the church and stuff. And, you know, I get that. And so like, and I'm not equating, you know, like jiu-jitsu is like a religious practice. I'm thinking of it more like as the sense of community, like where to go. Like people need that, right? Because there is a disconnect in society, especially like as much as social media in a lot of ways connects us. And this is really cool, like that we could do this even before. When we talked last time, there was no video. Yeah. So that's really cool that we can see each other and we can talk and you can do all of these neat things on social media. But then on the other side of that, I think a lot of people, especially after COVID, I feel like a lot of people really want to just get back to that experience again, the physical, real world experience, you know, like things like jiu-jitsu, things like, you know, where you're out actually interacting and communicating and being a part of something. And I think that's really important because we are social animals and we want to be in communities. We want to be part of a tribe. And jiu-jitsu, there's no tribe like it because it's not like, you know, you're going to a crochet class or something, you know, you're actually like spilling, you know, sweat with each other. You're actually like engrossed with each other in a physical way, unlike anything else you can experience in life. And that's going to draw you closer to people. So, or it can draw you apart and we can go right back to the ego thing again. And then it becomes something where it's not a good experience. But what a great thing for all of us to be a part of, because it does make the world better. It truly does.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. It's funny too, what you were saying there too, about like, especially post COVID, about how it's kind of driven people to be a little more isolated. Man, I feel so bad for kids now, like that haven't quite gotten back to the normal swing of things. Like, you know, I think that with kids, they're already kind of being pushed in a way, society's already kind of pushing them in a way to be digitally based anyways. They get together through online gaming. They keep up with, on social media. I feel like society's becoming more and more kind of pulling us apart in a way rather than bringing us together. So yeah, having real world physical places where you can get together with people, like you said, is hugely important, man. So
the most. Well,
Mike, I appreciate you sharing that, man. I know that's a personal topic. I appreciate you being so candid.
Of course.
Hope it helps someone out there. Man, Mike, I want to switch gears with you, man. This is something new I've added to the show since you've been on last. It's called the pummel. It's basically it's a series of random questions. Some of these have to do with jiu-jitsu. No. Some of them have nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. But if you're down to play the pummel game, I'd love to play this with you.
No pressure.
All right, no pressure, man. Here we go. Question 1. What's the worst job you've ever had in your life?
Working at a car wash.
Car wash. Nice. How long ago did you do that?
when I was a teenager. It was just ice cold, and it was upstate New York. It was ice cold, and just like it was just a miserable job.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun in frigid weather. Definitely not. Water spraying everywhere. Like, no, it's terrible.
Water everywhere, and I was a teenager, and like everybody that worked there was like doing coke at work and stuff, and like I was like this 15-year-old martial arts guy doing, when they weren't there, I'd be in the back doing pull-ups and stuff. It was weird.
They're probably
weird life experience.
They're probably looking at you doing pull-ups like, man, how many lines did that guy bump? He's out there doing pull-ups in the back, man. This guy's.
It was a very weird place. All right, next question. I can do this.
What's a secret?
Next question.
Yeah, of course. What's a secret talent that you have?
Oh man, secret talent that I have. Oh geez, I don't even know. I can catch things with my feet.
Nice. Okay. Cool. What's the biggest object you can catch?
Here's the funny thing. I'm so used to catching things on my feet all the time. It's kind of the joke at home. Things will fall out of the, off the cover, and I'll catch it on my foot and stuff. It's kind of the funny joke. Well, there was this big jug of water, like, the ones with the little nozzle, like you see in like an office place or something.
Yeah.
In our kitchen, right? It was falling. I don't know what possessed me to try to catch it with my foot. It was like instinct. I was like, oh, look at me. I'll catch it on my foot. And this big giant, it was filled with water, like 5 gallons or something?
5 gallons.
It fell on my foot and broke my foot. So my super skill of being able to catch cool things on my feet with my feet was like not really like super good in that situation. So that's a perfect example of muscle memory gone awry.
Yeah, right. So it sounds like your foot catching skills end at the 5 gallon tank. So anything below that, that's awesome. Yeah. What's something that you wish you were better at outside of martial arts?
I wish I was a good like snowboarder. I don't even snowboard. I've tried it before. Like I would like to just be like instantly good at that, because the path to getting good at that is pretty rough.
Yeah. It's such a cool sport, man. It always looks like
unforgivable,
so much fun.
But it's so dope. I just want to be good at it, but I'm not. So, a good snowboarder would be fun, or a rock star, whatever, either one.
There you go.
Like singing would be the other one too. Like I cannot sing. I wish I could sing. That would be cool if I could sing, but I can't sing.
That'd be a cool one too. But dude, for snowboarding, you're in Colorado now, man. You're one of the best places in the world to learn that.
I know, and I don't snowboard, dude. I don't even ski. Like you'll kill you out here, dude. It'll be like Sonny Bono. I'll run into a tree or something.
I hope not, man. I hope not. But I hope you eventually get out there. I'd like to see some footage of you
killing myself, dying.
No, it's like snowboarding. That'd be awesome.
Some death footage.
What do you think is the worst injury that you've had in jiu-jitsu?
The worst injury is probably popping my rib out, and because of how it happened, it was such a good lesson. So basically, a quick story: I was getting ready for a tournament. And I was a brown belt at the time. I was rolling with a purple belt, and I heard the coach say 30 seconds left, and we were on our feet, and he shot for a double leg, took me down. I was pissed because I always prided myself on that it wasn't easy to take down, but he took me down. So I threw him in a quick triangle. I'm squeezing as hard as I could. He's trying to round the corner. I squeeze as hard as I could, and I popped my rib. So I squeezed that triangle so fucking hard that I popped my rib out. And the round ended, and I went to go one more round, then just the burning started, and it was so fucking painful. And so the funny thing, this is 3 or 4 days before a tournament. I go to the tournament. Obviously, I can't compete, but I had to coach my daughter. Every time I yelled anything, it would pop out, and I'd be like, ah! And I'd scream, and I'd pop my rib back in. And I go back to coach, and I did this for an entire day. Every time I see someone at the tournament that I hadn't seen in a while, they come up to hug me, and I'd be like, get away from me. So the reason it's the worst injury, because I've actually had worse physical injuries in some ways. I haven't had a lot of injuries, but that one was bad because it was a lesson of like that jiu-jitsu, we talk about ego, right, could actually injure you. Like you could injure yourself. Like I literally squeezed something. I chose that. I chose to squeeze something so hard. I made it so important that I was out for 6 months now. And now my rib sticks out of my belly all weird, So that was kind of a good life lesson of like, don't make that moment so important. Because it's not. Because you know what? Like one day later, I would have done anything, literally anything, to change that one moment.
Man, that's definitely a good lesson, man. That sucks, man.
For sure.
It affects even the way that you greet people, man. People must have thought you were socially.
And it's all weird because it looks weird too,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man, your friends must have been like, man, Mike's social anxiety is like out of control lately. What's going on with him?
Out of control. Seriously.
What do you think is your favorite bad food to eat?
My weakness for bad food is I like pizza probably. I like pizza every week, whether I need to or not.
Nice.
So like I try to have, a Friday slice of pizza. So pizza's good. I definitely love pizza. I'm not a junk food person, but like my weakness is salty stuff too, like chips and shit like that. Like I try to stay away from them. I always think of like chips as my avalanche food. Like if I have one, I'm screwed. Like it's done. Pizza too. Like I could finish off. Like I can do some damage with pizza, dude. And so, yeah, and I like New York style. You New York or Chicago style? Like deep dish or the big wide pizzas?
So my family will kill me because my family's all from Chicago, but I do prefer New York style though. Yeah.
Good man. Yeah. I like that nice, the big wide thin slices. You roll it up like a sandwich, eat it like a taco.
Dude, that's
the deal.
So I live in Sao Paulo now, man. This is so the city here. It's 40% Italian descendants. It's a very, very Italian kind of vibe. Cool. And so there's such good pizza here, man.
Oh, that's so crazy.
It's kind of New York style, but they load it with toppings. Like it's like the toppings are like super, super thick, and so. Yeah, like pizza's my big weakness too, man. I love pizza, and it's I love the term avalanche food. I've never heard that before, but I'm gonna start using it now because it's exactly what happens.
So you have to figure that out. Like, what is your avalanche? What is the one food that's why, like when you get chips, you put them in a bowl. You don't keep the bag. The bag is trouble, dude.
Yeah, 100%.
I'll polish that off, dude.
100%. What's your perfect pizza? What kind of toppings do you usually go for?
So I don't eat meat, so. I'm vegetarian, so I do pretty much like veggie, or I just like, honestly, like if I was really going to have a good slice, like a good just cheese slice, like don't even have to put anything on it. But you could put some mushrooms and stuff on it, some peppers, but like just, by itself is pretty awesome too. Like a good cheese slice stands alone if it's done right.
100%.
You got to fold it too. You fold yours when you eat it?
It depends.
Like
it depends how wide it is. If it's super wide, if we're talking one of those huge wide pieces, then yeah, I'll fold it. If it's not a huge wide angled piece, then no, I usually just keep it in my hand. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Dude, if you ever come down here to visit me, man, there's a vegetarian pizza that's still popular with everybody, whether you eat meat or not.
Oh, nice.
It's called a abobrinha, which is just basically a zucchini that they cut real thin. So they take the slice.
Oh, that sounds good.
Real thin zucchini, and then they put garlic all over the top, and it's like.
Oh, that sounds good.
It hits. It's legit.
Sounds good.
It's
yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds legit.
Mike, what do you think was the scariest moment of your life?
Probably the birth of my first child. Like just having a baby for the first time.
It's nerve-wracking.
My wife, when we had my daughter, who's is going to be 17 now. My wife was 21 at the time. I was 15, almost 15 years older than her. Wow. I'd never had kids before. I met her when she was 19 and I was 32.
Wow.
And then she got pregnant when she was 21. And we opted to have a full natural home birth with a midwife.
Wow.
So we had my daughter at home in a tub, fully with two midwives.
No way.
It's totally safe. Like it's totally safe and legal. It's not like anything crazy. Like it's a little crazy for sure. Like I definitely see the craziness of it. But we wanted to. It speaks to the badassery of my wife. Truly, like she's no painkillers, no medicine, nothing. Just she did a full natural home birth. Wow. It was scary, because like it was like whoa, she's something she always wanted to do, and like I was like, all right, I'm fully supportive, but I was like, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. But we went through you went through like a class, and it was like a whole thing. But like that was kind of scary. And then we did the same thing with my son. He was a natural home birth too, and he's 13 now. And then the twins, interestingly, like you can't have twins at home as a home birth. You have to do that in a hospital legally. So we had our twins in the hospital, and both of them were positioned weird anyhow. So we ended up having to have a C-section. That again, when we talk about the scariest things in our life, that was probably kind of right there too, because we had our twins during COVID, 2020 in April. It was, like as a husband, like just kind of like having these two home births, which I was very much a part of, then have this, have a C-section, and you're there and you're like, it's intense to see your wife being cut open and like literally see the inside of your wife's body, like, you know what I mean? And have these babies being born. That was pretty intense, cool experience. The crazy part about that, was when my wife's water broke, we were at home. She wakes up at 3 a.m, her water breaks. I was like, all right, well, we got to go to the hospital. We called the doctor, we're on our way to the hospital. She drove the car. She wouldn't let me drive.
Oh my God, dude.
My wife's a typical female like that. She's like, I'm driving, you're not driving. I was like, are you sure? She's sitting on a towel and we're driving to the hospital at like 3 a.m. Like she's driving and I'm sitting in the passenger seat doing the map thing.
Oh my God, dude, your wife's a gangster, man. She did the home birth for 2 and then drove herself.
She had these, so then she has these, she has like the C-section. And so like the other part of the story real quick, when she was pregnant, we didn't know we were having twins until the last trimester. We found out at the very end that she was even pregnant with twins. We thought we were having one baby. Then we found out we're having 2 babies. And then the doctor said we were having a boy-girl. He said he was 100% positive boy-girl. Wow. He's like, I've done 10,000 births. I'm retiring this year. I'm never wrong. I'm like, are you sure it's boy-girl? And he's like, I'm 100%. Comes out, it's a daughter, So he said it was going to be 2 boys. Sorry, he said 2 boys, 100%. We ended up having a boy-girl. So the first baby came out and it was a girl. So he was wrong about that, about the sexes. But then my wife, like even right after like she has the C-section, she's nursing 2 babies. Like at the same time, like, right after she just had them, like, that's just the badass, if not, just women in general, dude, like women are pretty badass. Like, and she's a black belt. She's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, dude. Like, she's been doing martial arts since before I met her. And, she got her black belt 2 years ago. After like, you talk about my long journey, she was like 20 years almost to get her black belt.
Wow.
4 kids in there too, along the way to getting her black belt.
That's incredible. Dude, yeah, no, I can totally relate, man. I mean, dude, yeah. First of all, man, hats off to you guys for 4 kids is a lot. Like my wife and I, we originally wanted 3. Relative. Yeah, we originally wanted 3, but after the second one, we're kind of like, yeah, maybe we kind of chill out.
Ryan, I thought we were having 3. I thought we were having 3. Somehow we had 4.
That's amazing.
See, that's the tricky, the motherfucker of it all, dude. Like Sheena's dad was a twin. Her dad's a twin. My wife's her dad was a twin.
Wow.
And he was 2 sets of twins and 12 kids. There were 2 sets of twins in there. So our chance of twins was pretty high. So when we had our 2 kids, but we didn't have, our kids have like 10 years between the twins and them. And we actually in 2017 we lost a baby, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so my wife lost a baby, and then so we went back to the drawing board and we got ourselves in the best health we possibly could. And then she got pregnant. Apparently we did a good job because she had twins. And that was no drugs or anything either. That was just twins, dude.
That's amazing. Dude, I'm so happy for you guys, man. That's so cool.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's it, man. Hats off to the wife, man. That's something else. I can relate, man. Like I never realized how strong and tough my wife could be. I knew she was like very strong-minded and very hardworking and all that. But man, when we had kids, that's when I was like, okay, yeah, this is.
Dude, women are no joke, man.
She's way beyond
me. Women are no joke.
Yeah, 100%, dude. Well, let me ask you this one, man. Who's your all-time favorite grappler?
Definitely probably Roger. And not just because of my lineage. Like I'm under Nick Grigoriadis, and Nick was Roger's first black belt. Nick got his black belt in 4 years. So, Nick, I really, idolized Nick, but I really look up to Roger, and I looked up to Roger even before that lineage even began, mostly because like, I love that he can take just like he just takes fundamental basic jiu-jitsu and makes it look so fucking amazing. And he's so technical, and like everything about him, just his mindset. He's like, you never see him get out of that laser focus. You never see him break that focus. Everybody else gets so emotional and all over the place. He interviews, whatever. He's just always in that, like, that laser focus. He's like the fucking like Spock of like jiu-jitsu, dude. Like, he's got just enough human, right? Like Spock, but he's all Vulcan too, man. And he can do some crazy fucking Vulcan, like, shit. But no, I like Roger a lot. I appreciate the fact, and I appreciate that he's, like his lineage and his dad, Marcio Gomez, and like this all like, it's pretty awesome.
That's so cool. Great. Yeah. Great choice, man. Also shout out to your instructor, Nick Grigoriadis, man. Super good dude. Really good
Nick's
guy.
Amazing.
Yeah. I love Nick.
Good human being, dude.
Absolutely he is. Yeah. How about your favorite MMA fighter? Do you have a favorite MMA fighter?
I'm kind of more of an old school guy. Like I don't really follow, honestly, like modern MMA a whole lot. I came from like the Pride era. Like I was actually
speaking my language, man. Yeah, you're speaking my language.
Right. So my instructor back then was Alon Goes. I got my purple belt from Alon Goes through Carson Gracie Sr. So I went with Alon to Pride 4 when he fought Sakuraba.
Wow.
So I was at Pride 4. I had the pass, so I could go anywhere. So it was kind of cool. Like we weren't anybody cool. We were like probably annoying to Carlson and them. We were like, my friend was a blue belt and I was a purple belt. He was one of my students at the time. And, Alon asked us to go. And of course, like we jumped on that. And thank God that I did, because it was such an incredible experience. But my favorite fighter of all time is probably Murilo Bustamante. Like Bustamante is I met him at Pride 4. He was there with them, with Carlson Gracie and stuff. To me, I got so geeked out by him. Like, I was like, oh, can I get your autograph? Can I get a picture? I never got to train with him or anything cool like that. But I've always appreciated I like his build, because he's built like me. He's tall and thin. And he was just even back then, he was way ahead of his time. Like, he was beating everybody, dude. And he was so technical. And he used just pure jiu-jitsu, and he wasn't like all roided out and crazy looking. He was just a good jiu-jitsu guy. So I like the old school guys that appreciate, if I'm watching stuff now, I pretty much watch like the old UFC stuff, and I watch like Pride pretty much. But I do honestly, I am interested in one though. I think one is kind of cool. I like what's going on with that. I like Mikey Musumeci a lot.
Yes.
And I like where that's headed. I don't watch a lot of MMA anymore. But just the old stuff,
Yeah, no, dude, the classic. Yeah, I think Pride, I've said this 100 times on the show, I think Pride was like the golden era of MMA. It's like my favorite period of MMA.
Everything about it, dude, is so great. Those guys are they don't even feel like real people. They were fucking, Vanderlei Silva back then, and everybody, dude. There were so many good fighters back then. You go back and watch Bob Sapp versus Nogueira, dude. I watched that match literally, dude, once a year, just as a reminder.
I never get sick of it.
Reminder, dude.
Never get sick of it.
Right? I never get tired of that.
I'll go back a lot and watch Fedor and Randleman, Kevin Randleman versus Fedor, and Krokop and Vanderlei's rivalry they had, and dude, my favorite time. I've got literally a whole physical library. I have an entire bookshelf of just Pride DVDs.
Dude, and if you go back and watch, a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with Alon Goes, but when Alon fought Sakuraba back then, the one that I went to, that was the best showing against Sakuraba. He had the best match, dude. It was super technical. He almost choked Sakuraba. He had, Sakuraba almost in Kimura. And at that point, Sakuraba had already wiped out all the Gracies, dude. So Alon hung with him, I love Sakuraba, dude. I miss him, dude. I follow him on Instagram. He's a cool dude, man.
I also love Sakuraba, man. It's cool. So UFC Fight Pass actually has the entire Pride library. And then they've also got the origin stories, the origins of Sakuraba and things like that.
Oh, that's so cool,
I've been
dude.
enjoying the hell out of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that stuff. It's interesting, too, because a lot of the younger generation just doesn't know about it, I
know.
Even who these guys are.
Yeah. Well, I think that the overall direction of jiu-jitsu has changed a lot since when you and I first started. I think when you and I first started, it was still very tightly tied to fighting and NHB and MMA. Whereas now the sport of jiu-jitsu has taken off in such a way that a lot of guys that start today, it's because they're training jiu-jitsu. They're doing grappling.
Yeah, back then it was pretty much expected that you were going to do MMA.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? Everybody, you came up and you were you were going to do an MMA match, or to get to your next belt, you had to pretty much do a fight. Nowadays, no one does that.
Yeah. Well, dude, that's so cool. I didn't know that Alon Goes was one of your first instructors.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah. I interviewed him years ago, and man, he's got just an amazing life story, where he came from and the hardships he went through growing up, and how martial arts and jiu-jitsu took him to a different direction. It's incredible, man. He's such a cool
And there's
guy.
a lot of aspects of jiu-jitsu that can be really attributed to Alon's Goes guard, his guard, his, the leg hook sweep and sickle sweep, all of those combos came from Alon, He was one of the first guys really working that type of guard.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, definitely good shout outs. Extra points on the pummel again for diving into some pride nerddom with me here, man, because I love it. Let me pick another one for you here. We talked earlier about your favorite bad food to eat. What's your most hated food? What's something that you cannot eat no matter what?
Worst food. Wow. Dude, Dude, that's a tough one. I don't like the worst thing, probably like liver or something like I don't eat meat. Like we were just talking about this the other day, my wife and I was like, yeah, like, cause she was telling me how her dad used to eat meat organs and all this stuff like all the time. And I was like, yeah, I remember my mom serving liver when I was a kid. Like we would have liver for dinner. And it was like the gross. Have you ever eaten liver?
I don't think I have. I've had stomach.
Dude,
I've had
pretty fucking gross, dude. It's pretty gross. Like I remember that when I was a kid as being probably one of the grossest things that I've ever eaten before, you know? I keep a pretty simple diet. Like I don't stray from my diet hardly at all. Like I don't eat like a lot of foreign weird stuff. I eat pretty much like the same stuff all the time, especially if it's pizza. but like, no, I like, you know, I do like to eat though.
That's awesome. Yeah. I haven't had really any, like the only organ I think I've had is stomach. Have you ever had chitlins before? Have you heard of chitlins?
I've heard of them, but never had them.
Yeah, so I grew up in Atlanta, and one of my best friends growing up was my buddy Jay, and his family was all from the deep South, you know. Kind of cooking. And so he goes, hey, you want to come over for dinner? And I said, yeah, sure. And he says, hey, we're having chitlins, and I was like, oh, I don't even know what that is, but yeah,
you're
whatever.
Like, sounds good.
Yeah, like, yeah, cool, right? So then his mom comes in, she goes, baby, you had chitlins before? And I was like, no. I said,
yeah, I'm a pro.
Yeah, like, yeah. She goes, what is it? And then I said, what is it? And then she scoops me a serving of it. She goes, I'll tell you after you eat it.
So that's never a good sign.
I know. But I tried it.
No. In Colorado, it's Rocky Mountain oysters. That's what everybody eats out here, right? That's the big thing.
That's a real thing, huh?
That's like a real thing. Yeah, Rocky Mountain oysters. It's like testicles.
Yeah. Is it from a cow or from a bull rather, or what's it from?
I think it's from a bull, I guess. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Don't go eating them, right? Yeah, she's not really sure.
Yes, I'm not a big testicle guy.
Yeah. I'd probably find myself in that category as well. If I found myself in the if I had to categorize myself, I would probably not be a testicle eating person either, most likely.
Shit.
Final question for the pummel game, Mike. If a zombie apocalypse breaks out right now, what's the first thing you do?
Going to Costco, taking over Costco.
Yes, dude.
I always tell everybody, you take over Costco or Walmart.
Yes.
You get in there. Walmart's probably better because Walmart has guns and stuff and weapons. Yeah. So you're probably better off at Walmart. But Costco's like pretty good too. Like Costco, you could be pretty set in there. I'd be armored to a T in Costco, dude, or one or the other.
That's amazing, bro. It's so funny you said that. That's always been my zombie plan.
Dude, that's what I always say.
Down
I'm
to Costco.
The kingdom there, dude. Yeah. I'm gonna be the king. I'm gonna let some people in. You know what I mean? Put a moat around it and shit.
Dude, you've got pallets upon pallets upon pallets of dry
everything
food
you
goods.
need.
Everything you need, man. And it's a big square building, not too hard to lock down. Yeah. Excellent.
And there's only like two entrances, one in and one out.
Right. Yeah.
Like literally, dude, you have to go through that entrance to get in there with your little ID, but there's going to be no zombie IDs allowed. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, you're going to,
That's so cool you said that. I swear to God, that's always been my plan.
Well, there you go. See, Costco. You can come over and hang out with me. I'll look for you at your Costco.
We'll pick a Costco. We'll have like a supply line between our Costco.
That's right, dude. Yeah. Yes.
Well, Mike, man, my friend, you have completed the pummel game. Congratulations. You win.
Sweet.
You got your double underhooks.
That was good.
Mike, you were talking earlier about an aspect of your journey that I think is really interesting, and I think it ties in really well with the overarching topic of today, which is ego. You mentioned that you were a 13-year brown belt, and that's not terribly uncommon to spend many years at one rank. Obviously, everyone's journey is a little different, but did you struggle with any mental hurdles during that time? Like, did you feel frustrated after a while of being at one rank?
Well, part of it, like it was a lot of stuff. Like, obviously, like the depression, like kind of came into play. Like, not moving forward. I bounced around a bunch and moved to different places and stuff. So, like, in jiu-jitsu, when you start new somewhere, it's literally like starting new in so many ways. It's like building a relationship and a friendship and eventually a marriage, which would be a belt. And sometimes those marriages take, years to curate. And so like that didn't help my cause at all. And then it was hard sometimes seeing other people progress past you, especially in the world of social media. Like I had people that I was a brown belt in 2001. There were people that started as white belts that I knew in 2001 that got their black belts before me in 2014. So like seeing other people go all the way through it and you're like, man, I'm still a brown belt. It's tough because you like we talked about earlier, we love this so much and you want to progress. Like it's never about not progressing. So when students come to me sometimes when they start jiu-jitsu, And I know they mean this in the nicest possible way, but they'll say something like, I'm not here about the belts, or I don't care about the belts. And I'll say, oh, so you don't care about learning then, or you don't care about progression, because the belts actually do mean something. So don't ever think like, oh, I don't care about the belts, because it actually does mean something. Like, it actually stands for something. It has a lot that goes along with, because if it didn't matter, then we wouldn't give out belts then, and there wouldn't be any belts, and it wouldn't matter. But it actually, in jiu-jitsu, because there are those 4 belts, they actually have value attached to them. So, but it's easy to get, sideways about that, which I did, where I was like, I got to a point where I was like, I don't even care about the belt anymore. I don't care if I get to here. I'm going to be a brown belt forever. It's fine. I'll train jiu-jitsu and I'll be a brown belt. If someone someday promotes me, cool. But that's not a good way to think about it, because that got me stuck. I might have been thinking about that at like year 9 brown belt, not at year 12. Like, I was thinking about that early on. Like, I was just going to be a brown belt forever. And then what happens? Just you're a brown belt forever now. So I think it's important to, like with any goal, to bring it down into reality for yourself. Like, yeah, the belts are important. Like you should, as a student, like, you're a brown belt, right?
I am, yes.
When do you want to get your black belt?
I'd like to be one sooner than later, obviously, but I think
like in your ideal world, if your instructor thought you were ready, what would be the time frame? I'm not trying to corner you, but what would you like? What, like in the next year, 2 years?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if my instructor thought I was ready, then yeah, sure.
Right. And so that's important for you to think about that. That's important for you to go, you know what? Like in your private mind, not like, hey, professor, when's that black belt coming? It's never that conversation, but it's a private in your head conversation of like, yeah, like in the next 2 years, I would like to work hard and be able to be at the skill level of a black belt. I recognize that I'm not right now, but I think in a 2-year time frame, I think that could be a reasonable goal to work towards for myself. But ultimately, I realize that's going to be my professor's decision, right? Both of us are contributing to it clearly. Like, I have to do my part, otherwise I'm never going to get recognized. But it's important to bring those goals down into reality and to think about it and not be afraid to talk about it, and have that, in front of you, instead of just like, I don't know, whatever, someone says, or even worse, I don't care about that. I'm not about that. I don't need the belts, because they do mean something. So like for me, I kind of got stuck in that mindset where I was like, I don't care about the belts anymore. And it did make me, depressed. And I felt like I was never going to move forward. And then the big shift that happened for me was setting new goals for myself. Okay. It wasn't a goal to necessarily get my black belt, but I knew that if I was going to get to my black belt at that point, I needed to get in better shape. I needed to set some goals for myself. I wanted to compete. I had some unresolved things with competition I wanted to do. So what I did was in 2011, I lost 50 pounds. I entered a tournament for the first time in 10 years. I started competing with my daughter, started competing on a regular basis. Got myself physically in good shape, which helped me mentally and emotionally feel better about myself. Set some goals, achieve some of those goals. That builds confidence, it builds momentum. And I did all of these things that like, I wasn't like really like, how the fuck am I going to get my black belt? But because I did all of those other things, it got me to my black belt. But before, I wasn't doing any of these things. I was just sitting around going, like we talked about earlier, jiu-jitsu will take you exactly as you are. You could be 50 pounds overweight and do jiu-jitsu. Anybody could. Like, if you've been around for a while, but you're a brown belt, you could be not in your best physical form and still be doing it and be active, which I was. But I was injured all the time. I was constantly hurt. My body didn't feel good. I didn't feel good about myself. So when I fixed all of those other things in my life, it made that other goal just come right down to me. But until I addressed all of these other things, it wasn't going to. Like, if you're just doing the same things but expecting different results, isn't that the definition of insanity?
Yes, it is.
Right? Yeah. Like, you're never going to get there then. So that's what I did. I did a decade plus 3 years, plus 3 years of just doing the same things over and over again, but somehow not even at a certain point even expecting different results. I wasn't really expecting anything until I made that major shift. And then guess what happened? Everything fell into place.
That's so cool. That's really awesome. I appreciate you expanding on that. You mentioned that you had some unresolved things with competition. If you don't mind me asking, what were those?
I just was never a good competitor. Like years ago when I competed, I was never a good competitor, like really, and pretty much like anything. Like, and you know what I mean? Like, and you know, like I compete, I've done martial arts for my entire life. I have 3 other black belts outside of jiu-jitsu. So I competed in all those other martial arts, and I was always okay at competing. I was always second, third, or fourth, or not at all. I was never first place. So like when I went back to competition again, I said, you know what, I want to try to do this and actually like work through some of this stuff like that's holding me back, like with nerves and anxiety about competition and butterflies, and like feeling like that when I got out there and competed, that I wasn't the person that I was in the gym. Like I could do well in the gym and beat guys in the gym, but then I go to tournaments and I would like freeze up or like, you know, just not have a good experience. And then I hated it. Like I was like, oh, fuck competition. Like this is terrible. This isn't fun. So I didn't compete like for years. Early on, back in the early days, I competed a lot because that's kind of what was expected. You went and competed, but I didn't do great at it. I was okay at best. So I felt like I wanted to prove to myself that I could go back and compete in tournaments, at least try, at least work through like whatever it was that was holding me back. I could at least face it. Maybe I'll get through it. Maybe I'll become better because of it. At least I'll, you know, something will happen, right?
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome that you made that decision, man. I think that's a super common thing that people run into, man, is you realize that there's a difference between learning jiu-jitsu and learning how to compete in jiu-jitsu. It really is two different, it's two separate things. Yeah. And I think, man, but by making the decision to do that, obviously you made yourself a more complete practitioner and representative of the art. So man, kudos to you. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
I love that.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you.
Mike, let me tell you what, man, let me switch gears with you really fast. I appreciate all your insight today on ego and development and all this, but I wanted to make sure that we took some time to talk about technical development before we go.
Sure.
Something you've become known for is a really cool variation of the triangle, a brutal variation, I might add, called the triangle. The triangle, man. For those not familiar with it, how is it different from a normal triangle? For those that aren't familiar.
So I'm a triangle guy. Like I'm a tall guy of thin legs. So my natural physical tendencies would be triangles, which of course it is. I love triangle chokes. Pretty much like when I roll, that's all I look for. It's at the end of everything for me. It's kind of how I look at it. Like I will be always looking for other stuff, but then there's always a triangle at the end for me somewhere. Like I'm always trying to find the triangle at the end. So triangles were a natural like evolution of my own jiu-jitsu. And it's something I just enjoy. Like I love a good triangle. I love the fact that I'm choking someone with my legs. That feels cool to me. It's kind of different because it's like your legs and not your arms. It's way more technical. I love that they're looking right at me while I'm doing it to them. There's something enjoyable about seeing them being choked versus a rear naked.
Yeah.
And I like the triangle because it offers a sense of versatility that isn't offered by any other technique in jiu-jitsu. What position can you get a triangle in? Every position, literally every position. You can get it from guard, you can get it behind someone, you can get it at every angle, upside down, every direction. It's in every single position. So the other evolution of that was the triangle. So like I started catching, and other people have probably done this. I gave it a name and I gave it more attention probably than anybody else has, but it's not a move that I would say that I invented. I don't believe in the idea that you can even invent moves in jiu-jitsu. It's kind of like saying Ben Franklin invented electricity. No, he didn't. He found it. It was always there. It wasn't like he was like, aha. He just figured out a way to capture it, right? So, or whoever, right? Like no one can take that. Like, so jiu-jitsu is the same way. Like no one can really invent moves. We're all working with the same thing. We're all working with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a neck. And you could take 2 people, like let's say you had 2 people that had never done any grappling before, and you said, I want you to invent grappling. And they were just spending time inventing grappling. They would come up with the same stuff we came up with. We would all come up with the same stuff because there's only so many ways that you can do it. So I don't want to take credit for like inventing a move, but I'll take credit for like giving it more attention and giving it a cool name. And that's about it.
That's awesome.
And so the triangle, like a triangle with the arm inside, right? You need the arm inside for a triangle. You have the leg inside. Sometimes it can be just the leg. Sometimes it can be the leg and the arm. So there's different versions of that triangle. The triangle is a lot of fun because it's such a crazy move. When I first put a video out on it, people were like, that's insane looking. That's crazy. And then some people were like, you'll never get that in a tournament and that's never going to happen. And then, of course, as time went on, somebody got it in Fight to Win, then someone got it in the Europeans, and someone got it in the Worlds, and someone eventually got it in the Pan Am. So it's been in every single like major event now. Everybody's gotten it. But it's kind of a cool move because it definitely like, it's a little bit, and I call it the triangle instead of the triangle because it'll make you cry if you get in it, because it's like that terrible. It's just terrible feeling. Everything about it sucks. It's terrible. But it's a lot of fun to do. And in this instructional that I did for BJJ Fanatics, triangles, and leg locks, we teach the triangle, how to do it for anybody. So you don't necessarily have to have long legs. Like I show ways to do the triangle choke with shorter legs. And I show different, a lot of triangles in there too, and leg locks. And it's really a pretty cool little instructional.
That's awesome. That's so.
But yeah, that's the triangle. The triangle's become very infamous now.
It's so funny, man. I swear, like just a few days ago, I was at the academy, and one of my good buddies and training partners, shout out to Jonas Rocchetti. Jonas was showing me an option to attack a triangle from deep half, or rather that you're in deep half, and the person's trying to sweep you, and there's a response where you can set up a triangle. And he goes, nice. Man, it's like this triangle, but like the leg is stuck inside. So he showed me. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a triangle. And he was busting out laughing. He's like, I've never heard that name before. That's like the perfect name for this position.
And so what's cool about it is that triangle too, like a lot of people think that you have to be flexible to do it. It's actually the opposite of that. It works way better on people that are flexible. Like the guys that I like to do it on are people that like are obnoxious about their flexibility. Like they'll throw their legs over their head and they're like, oh, look at me. Like I can invert, like blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like that guy who just drops back and he's got his legs over his head and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
That's the guy you triangle, dude. That's the guy that you put his nose right up, or his knee right up against his nose and like armbar him off his face.
I hate to say it, but I'm that guy. I'm that guy. I'm that guy. Yeah.
Are you really flexible?
Yeah, I'm pretty flexible. Yeah. So it's
I'm pretty flexible too, but like I also like I'm 53, so I have to be a little careful in there. But yeah, but I love like you'd be the perfect guy to triangle then. Like yeah, you're the guy. Yeah. Someone needs to triangle you, dude.
I know, or just don't, please don't.
Yes. You can just. But you'd be good at them. You'd be good at triangles. You're flexible. It doesn't hurt.
That is awesome. Yeah, no, it is such a cool technique, and it really is like interesting all the various ways that you can enter into that position. Because when you see the final result of a triangle, you think, man, how in the ever loving hell did this guy get into that position? Like, how did that trap? How did that get set up? But as you explore your instructional, you do a really good job of showing the very, very easy ways that you can end up in this position. So
and all from normal stuff too. Like it's all from stuff that you're not having to create like these kind of like the end result. You're like, whoa, that's crazy looking, but the path there is the path that you would normally follow. Like it's not anything that you can't or wouldn't do like when you're normally grappling. Just simple stuff like if you're passing someone's guard and you can split their guard and step through, like you can get to a triangle super easy. So there's a lot of really like dialed down, very doable, very like easily replicable, regardless of your age, whether you're, my age and I can do them, and my students do them, or if you're a younger practitioner and it's fun. It's fun to, that's the great part about jiu-jitsu. It's fun to explore. Like it's as much as like we're all playing with the same limbs and the same, the same games, the ability to create and evolve and come up with new stuff is really unlimited because you have so many different positions that you can do that from. Like, and that's the fun part for me is like just constantly looking for new stuff. Like I'm always on the hunt when I'm training, like what new thing can I be adding? And that never ends. It's like every week, it's every day, it's constant. I almost can't control the flow of it. Like it's so much stuff to learn. Like you could take one aspect of jiu-jitsu, spend your entire life on it and never get to the other stuff and never even master what you're trying to master. How crazy is that?
It's true, man. It's the deepest rabbit hole that I've found so far in my life.
It's insane, dude.
You can go in a lot of different directions. There's always something new to learn. There's always responses to things. Like when people, I feel like when there's a wave in jiu-jitsu where the whole community is getting good at one aspect, then all of a sudden it becomes an arm race to, okay, well now how do we defeat this now? And then that leads to different things. And
it's maddening. Like it's really maddening. Like it's almost, you almost have to, like they say, like to really like embrace your art, you have to go a little mad, a little crazy. Like jiu-jitsu can definitely like get you there. You become that, crazy professor, the nutty professor.
Absolutely it can. Well, for anyone out there that wants to learn these concepts, like we said, Mike just released a really, really cool instructional with us here at BJJ Fanatics called Triangles, and Leg Locks, and it's available right now at bjjfanatics.com. So you guys go check that out. Mike, in closing, man, what are some of your major goals for 2023? What are some things you hope to accomplish this year?
Getting ready to actually film another BJJ Fanatics course here in the next couple weeks. This one's going to be it's really like one of the best things that I've done. Like, I'm really excited about. I haven't filmed it yet, but I have it all kind of in my brain right now, ready to get it onto film. It's going to be a really cool instructional. So that I'm excited about. And just keep it, growing and sharing, jiu-jitsu with the community. Like, I want to see more people keep doing this. It's like we have an opportunity as practitioners to really help people and in the best possible way, and give people some kind of hope and something to look forward to and something to do every day and a place to grow and expand and become better. So I look forward to like sharing this and growing jiu-jitsu and
That's incredible, man. Yeah. Well, Mike, it's something I've always enjoyed about your content, man. You do have obviously a very deep passion for jiu-jitsu, but I always appreciate how much you give back and how much you emphasize on helping other people grow and become better people and better practitioners. So, man, it's always a pleasure getting to talk with you. I appreciate you coming back 7 years after our first interview and doing another one.
Let's not wait seven more.
Never again. Never again. We'll do this again real soon, I promise. Yeah, but I appreciate your time today, buddy. Yes. Thank you, man. Well, folks, unfortunately, we're fresh out of time. Mike, as I said, man, I've really enjoyed this conversation, man. I appreciate you diving into the ego side of jiu-jitsu, which is a topic we commonly hear discussed, but I feel like you really gave some cool insight on that topic today, and I appreciate you doing so.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I also appreciate the overall technical development that we talked about today, and you're welcome back on the show anytime you'd like to come back. I'd love to have you back on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. For anyone out there who wants to keep up with Mike, it's really easy to do so. He's active on all social media. His handle on all social media is the same at BJJ After 40. So if you type that into Facebook, Instagram, everywhere else, whatever social media platform you use, you can find him that way. He's also got a great YouTube channel. It's BJJ After 40. If you type that in, make sure you guys go to his channel, subscribe, hit the little bell icon to get notified when he adds new videos, and start absorbing some of that knowledge. He's also got a great website, bjjafter40.com, and he has a great school, Flow Life Jiu-Jitsu in Lakewood, Colorado. So if you guys are ever making your way through Colorado and you want to drop into a really great academy, I recommend doing so. If you can't make it to Colorado, you're in luck. He's got a couple instructionals with us at the time of recording here at bjjfanatics.com. He's got BJJ After 40. So if you're in the 40 or older crowd and you want to pick up some of those concepts, that's a great place to start. The instructional we talked about today in depth is his brand new one called Triangles, and Leg Locks, available right now. And as Mike just hinted to us, he's got a third one he's going to start filming really soon. So make sure you guys are paying attention to bjjfanatics.com and look up Mike Bidwell. All of his instructionals will pop up. And Mike, I appreciate your time once more, my friend. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. And that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the BJJ Fanatics Podcast.